Begin today a new Pedic, the sixth Pedic of Masechta Zevochim. This Pedic will, in the beginning at least, continue halachas that we spoke about before regarding where exactly the Avodah of the Karbonis is done. The Kodshe Kadoshim, that as we learned in the previous Pedic, must be shechted on the north of the Azara. So if it was shechted on top of the Mizbeach, Rabbi Yesi says, Ki'ilu nishchetu b'tzafen. On any area, on top of the Mizbeach, it's considered to be as if it was shechted on the tzafen side of the Azara. And it's kosher. Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda, that it depends. Mechetzia Mizbeach v'ladarim. If you shechted it on the half of the Mizbeach, which is on the, so then that's darim side, on that side, on the darim side of the Mizbeach, it'll be considered like darim. Kedarim, mechetzia mizbeach v'letzafen. But if you shecht it on the north side of the mizbeach, the north half of the mizbeach, then ketzafen. Then the shechita will be qualified for a shechita of tzafen. So the mizbeach is split into half. Okay, so now the Gemara explains this. Machlokes here. Omer Avasi, Omer Rabbi Yochanan. Avasi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Omer Haya Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi, the first opinion here in the Mishnah that says that the entire mizbeach is all tzafen, that he said Rabbi Yosi's opinion was, he would say, Kule mizbeach b'tzafen koi, that where is the actual position of the mizbeach in the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash? The entire mizbeach is on the north side of the Azara. So it seems like that he's trying to say that this is the explanation for Rabbi Yosi's statement in the Mishnah. Because the entire Mizbeach is positioned on the Tzafin, so therefore, if you're anywhere on top of the Mizbeach and you shech the carbon there, so you're in the Tzafin of the Azara. Now, if that's where Rabbi Yochanan took this from, and that's the pshat in Rabbi Yosi's opinion in the Mishnah, so the Gemara asks, but umay ki'ilu? So why does the Mishnah use the term as if you're actually in the Tzafin of the Azara, because the Mizbeach is all positioned in the Tzafin? So the Gemara explains what he's saying is, Mao de Teime, I would think to say, Be'inon al Yerech. When it says regarding the Shechita that it should be done on Tzafain, it says, V'shachat al Yerech ha-Mizbeach Tzafayna, which means on the side of the Mizbeach. So it's not only the fact that it has to be in Tzafain, but it also has to be on the side of the Mizbeach. The Lekke, so that you don't have it when you're on top of the Mizbeach. Kamash Malan, therefore Rabbi Yossi uses the term ke'ilu because it's not exactly like what it says in the pasuk, but being on top of the mizbeach is like you are on the side of the mizbeach in the north of the Azara. Now, Amalei Rav Zera Ravasi, so Rav Zera asks Ravasi about what he quoted here in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. If this is your pshat for Rabbi Yossi's opinion in the Mishnah, so then Ela Meyato, based on this, how do we understand what Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda said? Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, so according to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, that says that you divide the mizbeach. There's the half of on Tzafin, and then there's the other half that's in Darim. So Hachanami, are you going to say that the explanation for Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is the Chetziyah bat Tzafin, that the position of the mizbeach was in the center of the Azara, and therefore half of it was in Tzafin, and the Chetziyah bat Darim, and half of the mizbeach was on Darim side, and therefore Rabbi Yosef is saying that when you shecht on Tzafin it's good, and if you shecht on the Darim it's not. It's the out of the tzafin. It seems like that the explanation of the machlokes of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah is regarding the position of the mizbeach and the Azara. Now, if you'll argue and say hachanami, yeah, that's the pshat in the Mishnah according to Rabbi Yochanan, but that can't be because v'ha'at hu da amrit mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan, because you Rav Asi yourself also quoted in the name of Rabbi Yochanan regarding Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda's opinion in the Mishnah, that he said, Maide Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, that although Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda said that when you're on top of the Mizbeach, on the north half, and you shech there, so then that qualifies for tzafin, but Rabbi Yochanan said that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda would be Maide, she'im shachton, kenegdon bakarka, that if you shech the carbon on that same spot, corresponding to that same spot where you are, on top of the Mizbeach and tzafin, if you shech on that same place, on the ground below, and the Gemara is going to explain soon how that's possible. The Gemara will explain soon how it's possible because it's the Mizbeach is there. How are you shechting on the karka there? The Gemara will explain. But the point is that he said that if you shech there in the karka psula, that the carbon would be possible. Now, if the explanation of Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is that that half of the Mizbeach is actually positioned in the tzafin of the Azara, so then why, if you would shech there on the karka, would it be possible? You're in the tzafin of the Azara. Therefore, the Gemara says that we misunderstood the whole thing that we quoted here in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei, so he said to him, Hachik, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. What Rabbi Yochanan said is as follows. So as Rashi explains, the original statement that we brought before, that Rabbi Yochanan said, that Rabbi Yossi's opinion is that the entire Mizbeach is in Tzafin. He didn't say this as an explanation or based on what Rabbi Yossi said in this Mishnah. He said it because he had such a Kabbalah. He had a Kabbalah, the Gemara will later bring the source for this, from another Mishnah. He had a Kabbalah that Rabbi Yossi holds that the whole Mizbeach was unsoftened. Nothing to do, though, with the content of our Mishnah. Here in our Mishnah, the Machlokes of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda regarding the top of the Mizbeach has nothing to do with where in the Azara the Mizbeach is positioned. Whether the Mizbeach is in Sofin, whether the Mizbeach is in Darim, doesn't make a difference. It's a separate Machlokes regarding the status of the top of the Mizbeach. And it's based on a different thing, on a pasuk. Shneim mikra echad darshu. Both Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, their opinions regarding the status of the top of the Mizbeach, they're darshaning the same pasuk and they're arguing the pshat of this pasuk. It says in the pasuk in the end of Parshas Yisrael, "V'zavachta olav, aselesecha v'shlomecha." You shecht on top of the Mizbeach a carbon oila and a carbon shlamim. So this is a pasuk where it says clearly about shechting on top of the Mizbeach. So Rabbi Yossi translates the pasuk to mean literally kulay la'oila v'kulay l'shlamim. You could shecht on the entire Mizbeach a carbon oila, and the carbon oila has to be only on tzafin. It's kachim on the tzafin, so you could shecht the entire Mizbeach on the as like it's on tzafin. And also the kulay l'shlamim, you could shecht on the entire Mizbeach, the carbon shlamim, which could be shechted anywhere in the Azara and definitely on tzafin. So you see here in the pasuk that the entire top of the Mizbeach qualifies to be like tzafin. Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda says, what does it mean when it says in the pasuk that you shecht oilei sechav eshlamecha on the Mizbeach? It means chetzia oila. Half of it will be for the oila, that's on the tzafin, and the chetzia l'shlamim, and the other half will be for the shlamim. So it's not the entire Mizbeach for both, but the kavanah of the pasuk is to divide it, like Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda says. If you're going to say that the pasuk is saying that the entire top of the Mizbeach would qualify for shechting an oila on it, and then kosher, that it'll be kosher, so hashte kulei la'oila kosher. If the pasuk is telling me that you could shecht on the entire top of the Mizbeach a carbon oila, even though it's supposed to be on the tzafa and kulei l'shlamim mibaya, would it have to add in the pasuk that you could also shecht on anywhere on top of the Mizbeach a shlamim? Why is the pasuk mentioning shlamim? So it must be that the intention of the pasuk is to say divide the top of the Mizbeach. The north half qualifies for the oila, and the south half qualifies also for the shlamim.
What's the question do you talk about?
Why would the pasuk have to add shlamim? Let it just say that it qualifies for the oila, and then it would be self-understood that the shlamim qualifies on the entire top of the Mizbeach, because the shlamim could be shechted anywhere. Once you say that the oila, which is more limited, that must be in safin, but it could be on the top of the Mizbeach anywhere, for sure the shlamim would be kosher anywhere on the top of the Mizbeach. Why? What's the chiddush to say that the shlamim qualifies as well? Correct. The idach, now according to Rabbi Yossi, how does he answer this? Why does the pasuk have to spell out separately shlamim? It's tzarich. It is necessary to say that the whole top of the Mizbeach would qualify for shlamim. Because otherwise I would think to say, you can't learn it out from the Ayla. Maybe the reason why the Torah gives you additional space on top of the Mizbeach, the Shechta Ayla, is because Ayla has a space only on the tzafan of Dazara, and there could be times where the shechting of the Ayla, there's not enough space there. Dochek le'makim, it could be too small, the space. So therefore the Torah says you could also shecht on top of the Mizbeach in a time when it's very busy. But when it comes to the shlamim, where you can shecht anywhere in the Azara, so you don't have a problem with space. I would say that you don't have the additional space on top of the Mizbeach to shecht the shlamim. It can be shechted only anywhere in the Azara, but not on top of the Mizbeach. Therefore, the pasuk is saying that a shlamim could also be shechted anywhere on top of the Mizbeach. That's the basis of their machlokes.
You still have a problem between the two psukim where shachat they say the yerech.
Yeah.
And the pasuk was Allah.
Yeah, true. It's two different psukim. One pasuk is saying if you're shechting, well, it's not a stira. One pasuk is saying if you're shechting in the azara, it has to be on the side of the mizbeach, on the tzafin side. And in addition, you could also shecht on top of the mizbeach. It's a beferish pasuk, and that the argument of Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, is about this pasuk, what it means on top of the mizbeach. Now the Gemara comes back to the detail that was mentioned before. Gufe, so we said before the statement in the name of Rabbi Yechanan that needs to be explained. Omer Rabasi, Omer Rabbi Yechanan. So Rabbi Yosef, Maide Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda says that if you're shechting on the tzafin side of the mizbeach, that then it's going to be good, even for the ayla. Now, but he said that Rabbi Yisrael is Maida, Shem Shachtan Keneg Don Bekarka Psulais. But corresponding to that place on top of the Mizbeach, if you're shechting then on the ground there, then the carbon oil would be puzzle. Now, what did he mean by this? Where is the corresponding place of the tzafin of the top of the Mizbeach on the ground below? So Ravachim Bedifti asks Ravine, what was Rabbi Yechanan talking about? My Keneg Don Bekarka. What is the place on the ground below? If you'll say that it doesn't literally mean on the ground below, but it means basically by the sides of the Mizbeach. Ama Yisaid, that was sticking out of the Mizbeach as the foundation, or Ama Saiviv, there was the other Ama which was almost by the half of the Mizbeach, five amas up from the Mizbeach, which was the ledge sticking out to go around the Mizbeach. Is it in that area that he shechted the carbon? But that cannot be what Rabbi Yechanan was talking about, because Hai Gufim Mizbeachu. That's part of the Mizbeach itself. That's just qualified. Just like on top of the Mizbeach, we said it qualifies. This is on the Mizbeach. Besides that, that's not what Rabbi Yechanan was talking about. My Kenegdon Bekarka. What does it mean? Rabbi Yechanan said that corresponding to this place on the Mizbeach, on the ground. This is not on the ground. This is on a part of the Mizbeach. So that's not what he's talking about. Another option would be a very interesting thing. If you would say that the case here is the Ovid Mechilois Bekarka. There's a cave that's dug under the Mizbeach and V'shachet and he shachts a carbon there in a cave under the Mizbeach. That's what means Bekarka. But that's not allowed either, because if you have a cave under the Mizbeach, then would the Mizbeach qualify to be a Mizbeach? But we learned in the Braise, the Pasuk says regarding the Mizbeach, Mizbeach Adome Taseli. The Mizbeach is made a Mizbeach of Adome, of the earth. This means it should be connected from, or be'adome, connected to the ground below, which means you don't build a Mizbeach on caves, v'lo al gabi kippin, and not on top of kippin, which means there was the other sections of the Azara that were built on kippin. They have the translation of kippin there. Arches, exactly. Not on top of arches. Yeah, for Tara, that's what they had exactly by the Azara. But over here, the Mizbeach has to be attached to the ground without any hollow space under it. So it can't be that over here we're talking about a person shechting in the ground under the Mizbeach in a hollow space. So what did he mean? So what he meant was in a case where the Batzre Bitsure, where they had to cut off a certain section from the Mizbeach, and in that area where the Mizbeach would have been, he now shechted in that area on the ground below where the Mizbeach was cut off from it. We'll see this in a few blot later here in this Pedic, where it speaks about this concept that the Mizbeach, if there was a reason for it, they were able to cut off the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach had to be square. But if there was a reason to minimize the size of the Mizbeach, it was allowed to be done. And then he would shecht in that space on the ground below. That's not going to... So on that, he said, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda agree that will not qualify for the carbon.
As softened.
As softened, right. As for the carbon oil to be softened. Huh?
Why not?
Now the wall is softened, because but the original wall was supposed to be... Not sure. I have to say, the Gemara doesn't say the reason. Rab Zeide said, going back to another point that was mentioned before, that Rabbi Yechanan said that the entire Mizbeach, according to Rabbi Yosi, was all in the tzafin of the Azara. How do we know this? Efshe, Isa lahad Rabbi Yechanan. Is it possible that what Rabbi Yechanan said is true? That the position of the Mizbeach is all in the tzafin of the Azara? And we should not find any source for this in a Mishnah. Such a fundamental point regarding the position of where the Mizbeach is, and there's no Mishnah that implies this. Nafak, so Rabbi Zera went out, Dok, and he looked closer into Mishnayos Ashkach, and he found a Mishnah that's a source for this, that the entire Mizbeach wasn't Safin. The Tanan, so here the Gemara goes through a lengthy Indian based on a Mishnah, and then eventually it comes out to prove this point. Now, what does it say in the Mishnah? They would choose good quality wood from a fig tree. And this is the wood that was used for the second pile of wood for the fire on the Mizbeach. There was the main maroche in the middle of the Mizbeach, and then there was another maroche that they used from the wood of a fig tree. Now Rashi here says, why dafke from a fig tree? That is tam agoda. And the reason is because this is a takana for the Chet Eitzadas by Adam Rishon. What happened after Chet Eitzadas Adam Rishon? So it says that Hashem made him clothing which was from the leaves of a fig tree. So therefore, so too by a carbon, which is for a kapara, we use the wood from a fig tree. Now, where was this pile placed for the fire, the second maracha on the Mizbeach? Keneged Keren Maravis Draimis. It was by the corner of Maravis Draimis, west-south corner. Mashuch men Keren Klapitzofen, but it was moved towards the north, removed from the south towards the north. How much? Arba Amis, 4 Amis from the wall of the south. 4 Amis towards the north. That's the detail that the Gemara is soon going to focus on regarding figuring out where exactly the entire Mizbeach was positioned in the Azara. Okay, well, let's first see the continuation of the Inyan here. Now, Chomesh Sa'in Gachalim, there was 5 sa'ah of coals that were made from these from the wood. On B'Shabbos, and on Shabbos they would add more wood, but that the measurement should be then that you'll have coals that are 8 sa'ah. Why? More coal on Shabbos. Because they would burn on Shabbos the 2 bezichel levaina from frankincense that came from the shulchan. Every Shabbos they would switch the bread and they would take the bezichel levaina and burn it on the outside mizbeach on this fire here. Now, what's the siman for this? Meaning, what's the reason why the second marocha, the second fire, was made in this area by Ma'ariv, which is close to the Beis HaMikdash? Well, right when you come out of the Beis HaMikdash, right in front of you, in that corner of Maravis Droimis, you encounter this fire. What's the siman? What's the reason for this that it was made right there? Says the Gemara Rabbi Yosi. This Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yosi's opinion. Tanya, we learned in Abraise, Rabbi Yosi said that siman, this was a siman, or Rashi says a siman biyotcha, a siman that you should have in your hands regarding certain parts of the Aveda that were done and on the Mizbeach, et kol hanitel bifnim. Whatever you took from inside of the Beis HaMikdash, linasim b'chutz, and it's brought out from inside in order to be placed on the outside Mizbeach, ein niten ele b'samoch she'ein lefnim, or she'ein lefnim emenu. So where do you place it on the Mizbeach? You place it on the Mizbeach in a place where there's nothing closer to the inside. And also, v'chol hanitel b'chutz, when you take from the outside, from the Mizbeach, linasan lefnim, to take it inside into the Beis HaMikdash, same thing. Ein nittel ele b'samach she'ein lefnim. You're going to take it from the area in the Mizbeach that is closest inside. There's no area in the Mizbeach closer to going inside the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, now the Gemara explains this. Ein nittel ele b'samach she'ein lefnim. Sorry, did I? Kol hanitel, that's wrong. Sorry. Kol hanitel. So the Gemara explains these two things that we just said. What's coming from the inside has to be placed on the Mizbeach outside, closest to the inside, and the same the opposite. What's coming from the outside has to be from the closest place on the outside going in. What are these two scenarios? Kol hanitel bifnim. L'nasim b'chutz ma'nihu. What's this case that you're bringing something from the inside to be placed on the Mizbeach outside? Ilay mesherayim. Is this referring to the leftovers of the blood on Yom Kippur, or by the karbanis that were brought inside? Chatois apnimius b'chlal, that you spray the blood on the inside, and then the leftovers is poured on the Mizbeach outside. Says the Gemara behed yiksiv bohu. This the pasuk says clearly el yisoid mizbach ha'ela asher pesach ha'el. That has to be placed on which foundation of the Mizbeach? On the foundation that's closest to the opening of the oil mayid. So it says it clearly in the pasuk. Rabbi Yosi would not have to explain this. Now here from the Gemara you see an additional point. We learned about this before, but before we learned that you could pour the blood anywhere on the western wall of the Mizbeach. But here it's saying that it should be in that area which is closest when you come out from the opening. Chatchila, that's where it's supposed to be. So another question is regarding the other part that it says, Kol hanitel b'chutz le'nasim b'fnim. When you're taking from outside, from the Mizbeach outside, in order to bring it inside, my nil. What is this referring to? Is this referring to the coals that were taken from the outside Mizbeach, then for the ketayres that's brought inside the Beis HaMikdash? So that as well, behed yiksibu. There the pasuk says this clearly. V'lokach maloya machta gach le'yesh. Take a full pan of the coals of fire, and the continuation of the pasuk is Pesach Ha'el Mayid, or it says Milufnei Hashem. It said it should be brought from Milufnei Hashem. So that Milufnei Hashem means right at the opening of the Beis HaMikdash. So that's also clear in the pasuk. Rabbi Yosi would not have to say this. Ella, therefore the Gemara says, what was Rabbi Yosi saying in this brayse? Kol hanitel b'fnim linasim b'chutz, what's coming from the inside. Going outside, what it's referring to is, as mentioned before in the Mishnah, shnei baziche levayna shalechem apanim, the two spoons of the frankincense that was brought from the lechem apanim that are brought into the Mizbeach, the Gomri Mishirayim. We learn it out from the Shirayim that just like the Shirayim has to be poured on the part of the Mizbeach that's closest to when you come out, so too the frankincense has to be burnt on that maroche on the Mizbeach that's closest to the exit when you walk out from the Beis HaMikdash. What is the opposite? When you're taken from the Mizbeach outside to go inside, what is the Chiddush of Rabbi Yossi here? The coals that are used for the ketayres that was brought every single day into the Beis HaMikdash. And even though it doesn't clearly say there in the pasuk that it should be from the place in the Mizbech, which is Lifnei Hashem, but the Gomra Migachalim Sheyem HaKippurim. We learn it out from the coals on Yom Kippur where the pasuk says Lifnei Hashem. So this is what Rabbi Yossi says in the Braisa. So the Gemara here is bringing all of this to prove to you that Rabbi Yossi is the Taneh that explains what it said before in the Mishnah regarding the place where the fire, the second Maracha, was on the Mizbeach. It was by the corner of Maravis, Draimis of the Mizbeach, but removed from the Dorim corner 4 Ames towards the Tzafim. Okay, and that's going to be right when you walk out of the door of the entrance of the Beis HaMikdash. So now let's figure out where the Mizbeach is positioned in the Azara, in order to explain why it has to be removed 4 amas from the southern wall of the Mizbeach, that it should be exactly when you come out. Says the Gemara, Omai Kesava. So now what does the Tana of this Mishnah hold regarding the position of the Mizbeach? I Kesavar, if his opinion is that Kulei Mizbeach Bedarim Koi, that the entire Mizbeach was all in Darim, so then it wouldn't make sense that you only have to remove it from the wall 4 amas in order that it should be by the opening of the Beis HaMikdash. The opening of the Beis HaMikdash was right in the center of the Azara, which means half of the opening was in Tzafin and half of the opening was in Darim. Now, how wide was the opening going into the Beis HaMikdash? So there's actually 2 entrances to go into the Beis HaMikdash. The entrance into the Heichel itself was 10 amas wide. So if it's right in the center of the Azara, 5 amas of that is on Tzafin, and 5 amas of that is on Darim. And then you have the entrance before this, which is the entrance of the Ulam, which was another 10 amas wide. It was 20 amas wide, so that gives you another 5 amas, another 10 amas width, another 5 amas on the Tzafin, and another 5 amas on the Darim. That's what the Gemara is discussing over here. So now if we're going to say that the Mizbeach itself is positioned entirely, the northern wall of the Mizbeach is right at the border of the Darim, of the where it ends, the Darim of the Azara, so then it comes out as follows. Esrin v'sheva boil mesi. In order to have the fire to be right across of the entrance into the Beis HaMikdash, it would have to be 27 amas removed from the southern wall of the Mizbeach. Because how wide was the entire Mizbeach? 32 amas. And if the entire Mizbeach is all in Darim, that means that there's only 5 amas, the last 5 amas of the Mizbeach towards the Darim, that was corresponding to those 5 amas of the entrance into the Beis HaMikdash, which was 5 amas in Darim. As mentioned, the entrance into the Beis HaMikdash, 5 amas of it was Tzafin, and 5 amas of it was Darim. So the Mizbeach, which was positioned in the Azara right up to the border of Darim, only the last 5 amas was by Darim. So the Mizbeach, which is 32 amas wide, so 27 amas of the Mizbeach is not across the opening of the Heichel, but only the last 5 amas is at the opening of the Heichel. So you have to put the pile of the fire by the much closer to the Tzafin wall of the Mizbeach, 27 amas removed from the Tzafin wall. So it's not enough to remove it only 4 amas from the wall. Okay, now the Gemara adds, if you're even going to say that Rabbi Yossi, in this Mishnah, we're saying that this Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yossi, so if you're going to say that he holds that Kedushas Heichel, Ulam, the holiness of the Heichel itself, and the Ulam as well, which was in a chamber in front of the Ulam, Chadihi has the same Kedusha. So therefore I don't only have to look at the opening of the Heichel, I look at the opening of the Ulam as well, which gives me now an additional 5 amas of opening, because it was 20 amas wide. But if so, it still means that the fire on top of the Mizbeach has to be removed from the northern wall of the southern wall of the Mizbeach, much more. Esrim v'tarte boy Macy, but you still have to bring the fire. You should place the pile on a fire on the Mizbeach, 22 amas removed from the southern wall of the Mizbeach. Yeah, because it's only the last 10 amas of the Mizbeach that's corresponding to the opening of the Ulam, if you want to include the additional 5 amas of the Ulam. But how does this Mishnah say that they placed it, only removed 4 amas from the wall? Okay, now, so this is all if you would say that the Mizbeach is positioned entirely on the Darim, that the northern wall of the Mizbeach ends by the border of Darim. So then we have a very big question, that it should be much further towards the tzafon of the Mizbeach, that it should be across the entrance of the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so now we're going to try to move the Mizbeach over to the center. If you would say, move the Mizbeach into the center of the Azara, and therefore chetzi b'tzafon v'chetzi b'darim. Mizbeach is half in Tzafon, half in Darim, so then it would come out, the Mizbeach, which is 32 amas wide, so if it's right in the center, so in the middle 10 amas of it, of the Mizbeach, is across the 10 amas of the opening of the Heichal. And then you have 11 amas in the Tzafon of it, and 11 amas in the Darim of it, right? 11 and 11, that's 22, and then the middle 10 amas, which is right across of the entrance of the Heichel, that's 32. So only the middle 10 amas is across of the Heichel. If that's the case, if so, Chad Sari, Boy Lemesi. So you have to bring the fire and move it from the southern wall of the Mizbeach 10 amas in, because only over there, when you come to the 11th amma, after 11 amas actually, sorry, not 10. After 11, it was 11 amas on the north, 11 amas of the south, and then only the middle 10 amas is across the entrance. So you have to remove it 11 amas from the southern wall of the Mizbeach, not 4 amas, as this Mishnah says. Now, furthermore, you're going to add and say, Kedushas Heichal v'ulam chad milsi. As we said before, it's possible to say that we're not only counting the entrance into the Heichal, but you could add another 5 amas to that, because the entrance of the ulam was 10 amas wider, so that gives you another 5 amas on the south as well, that you don't have to come so far onto the Mizbech to place this fire there. But nevertheless, but still 4 would not be enough, even if you take off another 5 amas from the 11 amas, but that you end up by 6. You have to come into the Mizbeach 6 amas away from the southern wall of the Mizbeach in order that it should be across of the entrance into the Heichal. So why is the Mishnah saying only 4 amas? So don't you think, and here is the source of what Rav Yechanan said, Mishum de Kesavar, the Tana of this Mishnah holds, Kule Mizbeach b'tzafon koi. The Mizbeach is entirely in Tzafon. And that means all the way up to the border of Tzafon. So the southern wall of the Mizbeach is right at the end of the Tzafon half of the Azara. So therefore, what does that mean? That there's only 5 amas of the end of the Mizbeach towards the south, which is going to be corresponding to the opening of the Heichel of the Beis HaMikdash. Because again, as we said, the Heichel of the Beis HaMikdash is 10 amas of an opening. 5 amas of it on Tzafin, 5 amas of it on Darim. So only 5 amas of the opening was in Tzafin. If the entire Mizbeach was in Tzafin, ending at the border of the Tzafin, so then that means only the last 5 amas towards Darim was corresponding to the opening of the Heichel. That's the pshat of what the Mishnah is saying here. And therefore, what does it say? Why do you have to have the fire removed from the wall 4 amas? What's the problem? Why can't you have it all the way by the wall? It'll also be it will also be corresponding to the entrance into the Beis HaMikdash. So the explanation is, Vahani arba amas, the 4 amas that we do not place the fire there, and we place it only after 4 amas. The reason is because Amma Yisayid, 1 amma of the Mizbeach is not even on top of the Mizbeach. 1 amma that we're counting from the Mizbeach is the foundation. Va'ama Saiviv, another amma that went in is the Saiviv, the area, the ledge in the center of the Mizbeach to go around. And then Va'ama Mokim Kronis. A 3rd amma was that amma where you had the thickness of the corners of the Azara that were built each amma thick. And va'ama Mokim Ragli HaKainim. And then there's an additional amma to have space for the Kainim to walk on the top of the Mizbeach. The chi mazgul lekamei tefach. Again, the chi mazgul lekamei tfei sul leke pesach. So if you're going to go further than that, so then you won't be against the opening of the heichal. So therefore, you have only one tefach left to place the fire there. The five last one am I meant to say, right? Only the last 5 amas of the top of the mizbeach, or it's not only the top of the mizbeach, it's including the yisoid. It's the last 5 amas of the mizbeach that's across the opening of the Beis Hamikdash. If the entire mizbeach is positioned on the tzafin of the azara. So why is it saying over here in the Mishnah that you put it after 4 amas? Because the 4 amas was including all these details just mentioned: the yisoid, the Besaviv, the Kranais, and a place for the Kainim to walk around. And then right after that is where you place the fire, and it has to be dafka over there, removed from the wall 4 amas, but not more than that. It means removed, including these 4 amas, and then right there you have to put the fire. Otherwise, if you put it beyond that 5th tefach, then it's not going to be a cross of the opening of the Beis Hamikdash.
So how did you put a whole marach in one
Yeah.
tefach?
And that's not one tefach, one amma. Talking about amas here.
It's tight,
Yeah.
Very tight.
Yeah.
Pesach tefach.
Yeah. If you're going to walk further than this, so then you're not across the Pesach. That's what it means. It's like a Pesach. It's only the last 5 amas that are right across of the opening. So this is
are taken up.
4 of them are taken up already. So therefore, you have only 1 amma, that last amma that you could place the fire there, that it should still be across the opening of the heichal. So this is the source of what Rabbi Yechanan said, that we have a Mishnah that we could, if you look deeply in the Mishnah, we see this point that the entire Mizbech was all in Sofim. And we said that this is according to Rabbi Yossi. Okay, but now the Gemara brings another interpretation. Omer Ravada Barave says, Homani Rabbi Yehudahi. I can tell you really that this Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. And this is, the Gemara now will explain what the Gemara suggested before, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that the Mizbech was positioned right in the center of the Azara. Because the Tanya we learned in the Mishnah, or Nabrai said Rabbi Yehuda, Mizbeach Memutzav Oimid Be'emtza Azara. The Mizbech was right in the center of the Azara. And what does that mean? Shloishim Mishtayim Ames Hayuloi. The width of the Mizbeach is 32 Ames. So that means Esther Ames, the middle 10 Ames of the Mizbeach is Kanegat Pischa Shalula. Is right across, Shal Eichel it is right across the opening of the Eichel. Achas Esra Amma Mikan, then 11 Amas of the Mizbeach is on one side, on the Tzafin side. Achas Esra Amma Mikan, and another 11 Amas are on the other side, on the Darim side. So Nimtza Mizbeach Mechuvin Keneged Heichel. So the Mizbeach is right in the middle, across of the opening of the Heichel. And that's who this Mishnah before is going like. But the Gemara now asks the question that we already addressed before, sof. But if you're saying it goes like Rabbi Yehuda, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, why are you saying that the fire was placed 4 amas removed from the wall? Chatzari ba'yel. It comes out that it has to be removed from the wall 11 amas, because that 11 amas was darim to the entrance. It has to be in the middle 10 amas of the Mizbeach across the entrance into the Heichal. Now, furthermore, if you're going to say that he also holds Kedushas Heichal v'ulam chada milsihi, that we're not only counting the opening to the Heichal, which is 10 amas, but we're including also the opening of the ulam, which gives me an additional 5 amas on the darim side. But nevertheless, shis boil lemesi, you still have to remove the fire from the darim wall of the Mizbeach 6 amas, not 4 amas. Okay, so the Gemara answers, I could say that this goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, and he holds that we're counting the wall of the ulam, and it's only 2 amas off. Instead of 4 amas, it should have been 6 amas. So therefore we say as follows: Mi savres, do you think to say Hani arba amas bahadi ama v'isayt v'amas sayvev, when we're counting and saying that you have to remove it from the wall 4 amas? That includes the ama of the foundation and the amma of the ledge of the sayviv that goes around. No, arba amas. When it says here 4 amas, it means 4 amas of the roof, of the top of the mizbeach. That means bar me'ama yisoid v'ama sayviv, excluding that amma of the foundation and the amma of the sayviv. It has to be another 4 amas when you come to the top of the mizbeach. Simple. So that's only 4 amas. So this makes sense even if you say that the Mizbeach is positioned in the center of the Azara, and if you say that he holds, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the wall of the opening of the Ulam is also counted as the opening to go inside the Beis Hamikdash. So if this is the case, so we could say that the Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yossi, as the Gemara before connected this Mishnah to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi and the Braisa, and that the Rabbi Yossi also holds that the Mizbech is right in the middle of the Azara. Not like we said that, this is the source for Rabbi Yechanan, that you see in the Lashon of a Mishnah that the Mizbech is positioned totally in the Tzafin. We have now pshata. We could say that even according to Rabbi Yossi, it's in the middle. And since the Gemara, the emes, you're right. We could have said that. But in Mishum, the Rabbi Yehuda, Shemainele, Memutze Behedya. The reason why Rabbi Ada bar Av is saying that it goes according to Rabbi Yehuda is because Rabbi Yehuda is the one that clearly said that the Mizbeach is positioned in the center of the Azara. So therefore, he attributed the opinion to Rabbi Yehuda. But you could also say the same thing and answer this Mishnah according to Rabbi Yossi. So in the conclusion of the Gemara, it comes out right now that we don't have a source from here that Rabbi Yossi holds that the entire Mizbeach was in Safan. It could be explained that the entire Mizbeach was in the center of the Azara.